She's 33. She's exhausted in a way sleep doesn't touch. Her hands are cold in July. Her hair is coming out in the shower. Her cycle has gone strange. She's put on weight that will not move no matter what she does. She goes to the doctor. They run a thyroid panel. TSH comes back normal. She's told everything looks fine. And here's the thing. The lab isn't lying. Her TSH really is normal. But nobody ordered the one marker that would have explained all of it. And nobody asked the question that connects it. She went on the pill at 18 and stayed on it for 11 years. Nobody connects the pill at 18 to the diagnosis at 33. The two appointments are 15 years apart, with different doctors in different buildings. But the blood work tells the story every single time, if anyone bothers to order the right lines. This is the mechanism nobody explains to women. And it starts with something that has nothing to do with your thyroid gland at all. Let's start with what she describes, because this list is almost identical from woman to woman. Fatigue that 8 hours of sleep does not fix. Cold hands and cold feet all year. Hair thinning. Check the shower drain, check the brush, and check the outer third of your eyebrows while you're at it. Brain fog, where the word you want is right there and won't come. Constipation. Cycles that got irregular or heavy or both. Low mood that doesn't match anything happening in her life. Fat loss that stalls no matter how little she eats. Every one of those is a classic low thyroid symptom, every single one. So they test the thyroid, and the thyroid test comes back fine, at which point she gets told one of three things: that it's stress, that it's anxiety, or the one that does the most damage, that it's just what being a woman in your 30s feels like. It isn't. And the reason the test came back fine is not that she's imagining things. It's that the standard test measures the wrong end of the system. Here's the part that changes how you read the whole panel. Your thyroid makes hormone using an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase, TPO. It catalyzes the first two steps of the entire process. This is the machine on the factory floor, not a manager somewhere upstairs. And thyroid peroxidase is a heme enzyme, heme. The same iron-containing structure that makes your blood red. TPO has iron built into its active site, and without that iron, it does not work. Not works less well. The enzyme's activity drops measurably, and hormone production drops with it. So the raw material for making thyroid hormone is not iodine alone, the way everyone was taught. It's iodine and iron. Take the iron away, and the factory slows down no matter how much iodine you throw at it, and it doesn't stop at production. Iron also affects the peripheral conversion step, turning T4, the storage form, into T3, the active one. That's the step that actually decides what your cells get. So low iron hits the system twice, less hormone made, and less of what's made gets activated. Now hold that thought, because here's where it gets genuinely strange. You'd expect the body to catch this. That's what TSH is for. TSH is the signal from your pituitary telling the thyroid to work harder. The whole logic of thyroid screening rests on one assumption. If thyroid output drops, TSH climbs. The alarm gets louder. That's how you find the problem. So what actually happens to TSH when iron is low? There's a meta-analysis on exactly this. Garofalo and colleagues published in Nutrients in 2023. 10 studies. 4,395 people with iron deficiency against 23,000 controls. In non-pregnant women with iron deficiency, free T4 significantly lower, free T3 significantly lower, and that one at a p-value below 0.00001. So this is not a marginal finding. And TSH, no significant difference. None. A mean difference of 0.01 with a p-value of 0.86. Read that again. Output is down. The alarm doesn't move. Now, one honest note, because it matters. In pregnant women, TSH did drop significantly alongside the other two. The pattern isn't identical in every population. But for the woman we started this video with, 33, not pregnant, exhausted, the finding is the one that should worry you most. Her thyroid hormone levels can fall while her TSH sits there looking perfectly reasonable. This is the whole problem in one sentence. Iron deficiency doesn't just reduce thyroid output. It fails to trigger the signal that's supposed to catch the reduction. The factory slows down, and the alarm stays quiet. And since standard screening looks at the alarm and not at the factory, she gets told she's fine. So order the ferritin, right? That's the iron storage marker. Here's the second trap. On most lab reports, the bottom of the ferritin reference range sits somewhere around 10 to 15. Below that, you're flagged. At 16, you're inside the range. Nobody calls. Nothing gets said. But the range was built to catch anemia. the point where you don't have enough iron to make red blood cells. It was never built to answer the question we're actually asking, which is whether you have enough iron for the enzyme that makes your thyroid hormone. Those are different thresholds, and the gap between them is enormous. His position, and you should hear it as a clinical position, not a consensus guideline, is that functional ferritin for a woman sits somewhere around 70 to 100, and that symptoms often don't resolve until ferritin gets well up into that range. That leaves a corridor, roughly 15 to 70. Inside that corridor, you are technically normal on every report you'll ever be handed, and simultaneously short of the raw material your thyroid needs. That corridor is where an enormous number of women live for years. And think about who ends up there. Every menstruating woman loses iron on a monthly schedule. Heavy cycles lose more. Pregnancy costs iron. Eating less meat costs iron. This isn't an exotic deficiency. It's the most common nutritional deficiency on the planet, and it lands hardest on exactly the population getting told their thyroid panel is fine. Now back to the 18-year-old. Reduced blood levels of several nutrients have been reported in women on oral contraceptives: zinc, selenium, magnesium, vitamin B6, B12, and folate. And the reductions tend to be proportional to how long she's been taking them. Let me be careful here, because this is a medication millions of women rely on, and I'm not telling anyone to stop taking anything. What the research supports is the depletion. What comes next, the idea that this is what breaks thyroid conversion years later, is his clinical argument, built on the mechanism and on what he sees in blood work. It is not a proven causal chain, and you should hold it as an argument rather than a fact. But look at which nutrients those are, because the overlap is not subtle. Zinc runs the deiodinase enzyme, the one that converts T4 into T3. That's the activation step. No zinc, no conversion. And thyroid medication can't do its job either, because medication gives you more T4, and T4 still has to be converted. Selenium builds glutathione, which your liver uses to clear estrogen. Clearance slows, estrogen climbs, and elevated estrogen pushes thyroid function down further. B6 is required to make progesterone. Low B6 means low progesterone, which means estrogen runs unopposed, and you're back in the same loop. B12 and folate drive methylation, which is how your body processes hormones and clears what it doesn't need. Stall that, and everything downstream backs up. Magnesium is a cofactor in hundreds of enzyme reactions, thyroid hormone activation among them. Every one of those is a piece of the same machine. And the depletion is slow. You don't feel it at 19 or at 23. It compounds. So, what does this look like on paper? The numbers he reports seeing over and over in women who came off the pill after years on it. Ferritin sitting at 15 to 30, when functional is 70 to 100. Free T3 sitting at 2.4 to 2.8, when the functional target is 3.4 to 4.2. And TSH, normal. Every time. Because we already covered why, the alarm doesn't move. So she comes off the pill expecting her body to go back to how it was, and it doesn't. And the conclusion everyone reaches is that something is wrong with her thyroid. But on this reading, the gland was never the problem. The gland was starved of what it needed to do the job. For years, quietly, while every test that got ordered came back inside the range. That's a different problem with a different solution. You don't fix a supply shortage by shouting at the factory. One more layer, because this rarely shows up on its own. Three things travel together in women, and they feed each other: thyroid dysfunction, insulin resistance, and PCOS. High insulin pushes the ovaries to produce more androgens, which drives the PCOS picture. An underactive thyroid makes insulin resistance worse by slowing metabolic processes and reducing how efficiently the body uses glucose. And because the symptoms of all three overlap almost completely: fatigue, weight that won't shift, hair changes, irregular cycles, mood, one of them gets diagnosed and treated while the other two go unnoticed. So she gets a thyroid prescription and nothing improves because the insulin side was never addressed. Or she gets the PCOS label and the thyroid conversion problem sits there untouched. Treated one at a time, in separate appointments, they can persist for years. Your symptoms are not in your head. They're in a loop, and the loop has three sides. So if this is you, here's what changes on Monday. Ask for ferritin. Not just a full blood count. A full blood count can look perfectly normal while your ferritin is on the floor, because anemia is the last thing to show up, not the first. Ask for free T3 and free T4, not TSH alone. TSH tells you what the pituitary is saying. Free T3 tells you what your cells are actually getting. This whole video is about the distance between those two. And if you've been on the pill for years, or you came off it and never felt right again, ask about the cofactors: zinc, selenium, B6, B12, folate, magnesium. Not because a supplement fixes everything, but because you can't fix a conversion problem while the raw materials are missing. Take your morning temperature while you're at it. It's free, it takes 30 seconds, and it doesn't care what your reference range says. None of this is a reason to stop a medication, and none of it is a diagnosis. It's a reason to ask for 4 more lines on a blood test that you were already going to have. You were told your thyroid is normal. What you were never told is that nobody checked whether it had anything to work with. Train, eat, improve, and test. Don't guess.